Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Williamsburg City Council meeting of Thursday, September 11th. And before we call the roll, if we could just take just a moment of silence in remembrance of the horrific incidents that happened 24 years ago. Thank you. Ms. McKay, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Williams.
Here.
Ms. Ramsey.
Here.
Mayor Pons.
Here.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Here.
Ms. Kernshire.
Here.
Okay, in our packets, we have the minutes from the work session of August 11th and the City Council meeting of August 14th. Are there any corrections? Motion?
So I move that the minutes for August the 11th and August the 14th be approved.
Second.
Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams.
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey.
Aye.
Mayor Pons.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire. Aye.
All right, I don't believe we have any matters of special privilege today. We'll move on to public hearings, and first is the consideration of a grant of easement to Dominion Energy at 5700 Moortown Road in York County. Ms. Shelton.
So the city of Williamsburg owns a significant amount of property in York County that's associated and part of the city's watershed. Dominion Energy approached the city about providing them with a 15-foot easement for the purpose of installing utility lines on one of those properties located at 5700 Moortown Road. This is the lot next to what has become the York County Fire Station along Moortown Road. In your packet is an easement from Dominion. The city is providing Dominion in that agreement with an easement for 40 years to install their lines. They have removed any language that requires the city to pay any costs associated with relocating these lines, because as this is not in the city, and the most likely reason why those lines would need to be located is because of a change in the composition of the road. We asked them to take that out, and they did. Otherwise, it's a fairly standard utility easement from Dominion in order to provide better service along that corridor.
I know that this took some time to get to this point. So with that, I'll open, unless there's questions for staff. That I'll open the public hearing if anybody would like to come forward and speak to this. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and go back to my comments. I know that we've been working on getting the language of the easement in order for some time, and Ms. Shelton, I appreciate your diligence on that, and so I don't have any questions or concern based on what I've seen.
No questions.
No questions. None for me.
No questions.
Is there a motion?
So I move that City Council authorize the city manager to execute the right-of-way agreement granting an easement to Dominion Energy on city property located at 5700 Moortown Road.
Second.
Okay.
Ms. Williams.
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey.
Aye.
Mayor Pons.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire. Aye.
Okay, next is consideration and action regarding PCR number 25-023, a subdivision ordinance text amendment to amend Chapter 16 subdivisions outlined in the proposed ordinance 25-11. Again, Ms. Shelton.
And Mayor, if we could take up B and C together.
Okay? Works for me.
So this is the third time that I have come to council on this particular issue. The first time was during the legislative briefing. The second time was to appoint a designated agent while we were working on the ordinance change. And what you have in front of you now is the ordinance change. So the Code of Virginia this year was amended to remove the consideration of site plans, development plans, and subdivision plats from the Planning Commission, and instead requiring those to be approved by a designated agent who is appointed by City Council. In addition, the state also shortened the timeline for reviewing those documents, 40 days in the event of a subdivision plat or a development plan, 45 days for preliminary plan. So the ordinances that you have in front of you amend the subdivision ordinance 2511 and the zoning ordinance 2512 to implement those changes. There is a notice process that was involved with site plans in the zoning ordinance where signs were placed on properties where a site plan was being considered and provided information about the meeting, where to go to the website to find out the meeting. There is also a site plan review committee provided in the zoning ordinance who assists with reviewing those documents. The Site Plan Review Committee is retained in this version of the code, but instead of having legal authority as part of the review process, they are working in an advisory capacity to the designated agent. So the designated agent may ask for them to review a plan. And we have not removed any of the required notice. So all of the signs will still continue to be put out. The person to whom you would contact then if you had questions to raise concerns or provide comments would be the designated agent. The designated agent in the ordinance is still the planning director, consistent with what council did a couple of months ago. So that's what these ordinances do. They implement those changes that are required by the Code of Virginia. I can answer any questions that you have.
Questions? Save your comments. I know you got some. Any questions for staff?
Questions?
Okay. With that, I'll open the public hearing on both items B and C on the agenda, if anybody would like to come forward. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and come back to council for comments. My only comment, this effectively, obviously what I think the General Assembly aspired to do was to shorten the process for these subdivision and plats to be approved to expedite building. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I also think the perception is very much that these are ministerial acts, because you can't require anything in a subdivision plat or a site plan that isn't already specifically in the code.
Yeah, and so my only concern still is that it takes away time for the public to gain knowledge and provide input should they wish. So, but this is something that it's a matter of housekeeping essentially, because we have to conform with the Commonwealth of Virginia. Mr. Vice Mayor, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, I don't particularly care for what they did, but it wasn't our call, and I don't like the idea that the public doesn't have that opportunity for input. And I realize what they're trying to do with shortening the time span. And when you listening to some legislators in the Commonwealth, that's there to start to try to address a housing shortage. They want to try to reduce the length of time it takes to get these things through the process.
Chair?
Well, I'll just join in the love fest for this particular provision. And we've talked about this a couple times and answered our questions every time, and we all kind of know where we are here in this regard. But I also want to point out that another consequence of it, in addition to what the Vice Mayor has already pointed out, and the Mayor, is that it also just does give an increased load to the Planning Director and in an expedited time frame. And so I just recognize that, whereas perhaps one other downstream effect is that an additional part of the portfolio for our Planning Director that has not quite been the same, because there was a Site Plan Review Committee. And I just want to say I see and recognize that that's going to be an additional part of the Planning Director's job, and I think coupled with having to do this more quickly is an issue. But again, here we are. I've said my piece, and that's that.
Ms. Ramsey, anything?
I just echo what has already been said, and I think that we all feel too this is a nibbling away at local authority over zoning and planning. And it'll be interesting to see what is proposed in the next General Assembly that we might have to adopt, because it becomes law without our input or approval.
Mr. Ramsey actually just said what I was planning on saying as well. I know this is an increased burden, especially on city staff. So it will be interesting to see how this plays out the next couple months.
Okay, so we're looking at a motion on both items B and C. Is anyone prepared to make that motion?
And these can be combined into one motion. So I move that City Council approve PCR 25-022 and PCR 25-023 and adopt ordinances 25-11 and 25-12 to amend Chapter 21 of the zoning ordinance.
Second.
Thank you, sir. Ms. McKay, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to reports, first is the monthly financial statement. Ms. Dameron, welcome.
Good afternoon. And as we start our report this year, you'll see this first chart ends with FY25, and that's just because there's a 2-month lag on when we collect sales activity. So what we collected in August is actually for June activity. And you'll notice that for FY25, we ended at 99% of the budget and about $80,000 over FY24, and that equates to about a 1.3% increase. And to put that in a little bit of perspective, the increase between 23 and 24 was almost 4%. And then I didn't really pay too much attention to 21 and 22 because those were their pandemic years. But when we look at FY19 and the increase there from FY18 is about 2.6% increase. And then as we look at our rooms tax, so the rooms tax is going to be activity for July. And we had about a 50,000 increase compared to last July, which equates to about 13.6%. And then in our meals tax, we're running pretty level, just a slight decrease, about a 0.1% decrease there. And then as we look at our lodging tax, and again, that's activity for July, we have about a $14,000 increase, which is about a 14.6% increase. And on our historic sales tax, again, we're looking back at June activity. And we had about a $15,000 decrease, which is just a little bit over 0.5% decrease. That ends my formal charts. Early in the year, we don't have a lot of revenue stream trend data yet. Nothing that I'm seeing in our expenditures that looks out of line compared to our budget, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Dameron. I don't have any questions.
Yeah, thank you. No questions.
And for me?
No questions, thank you.
All right, next is monthly departmental operating reports. Mr. Trivett, who do we have today?
Yeah, this month we're going to have a report from Economic Development. It's going to talk to us about special event permitting.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pons, members of City Council. In the spring of 2024, the Economic Development and Tourism Department took over the processing of special events permits. The Administrative Coordinator, Sarah Seward, became the lead point of contact. During this transition, we were able to review the process to determine how it could be improved for efficiency. Today, Ms. Seward and I will be presenting a little background on special events permits and the current process. We'll then show you what has been done to shift to a more streamlined platform for applications and reviews, highlighting the features and benefits of this platform, as well as next steps for implementation. So with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Seward.
Welcome, Ms. Stewart.
Hello.
Oh.
So, short-term special events are clearly defined in city code, but basically it's any event that takes place on public property, the latter being defined as all public streets, sidewalks, and passageways owned by the city, including City Square and Bicentennial Park, all requires a special events permit from the city. Event examples include parades, races, concerts, and even weddings that may have an outdoor reception or tent on public property, sidewalk sales, and even political campaign tents during election season. However, there are some exceptions, such as funeral processions and tour groups, all of which are defined in the code. There are also some strict rules for when someone can apply for a special events permit. For example, you cannot submit your application more than 6 months prior to the event, and the deadline for applying is dependent on the size of the event. Here's an outline of how the process works now. The applicant submits an online form, which is currently on the city's website. It is then distributed to pertinent city staff as well as local partners depending on the location of the event. The city staff list includes departmental representatives from planning, public works, fire, and police. Regional partners might include Merchant Square, Colonial Williamsburg, and the library. Once it's sent out, we then wait until we've heard from everyone for approval, concerns, and any other important feedback or questions. If there are questions or additional information needed, those are relayed back to the applicant. Once everyone has provided their feedback and there are no concerns, a permit is drafted. From there, it goes to the city manager for final approval. At that point, the permit is issued by email to both the applicant, reviewers, and additional parties or organizations who may be affected by the event. On paper, the system looks pretty simple, and in theory, it is. However, once it's emailed out, it can take a lot of time tracking everyone's comments, sending reminders, and ensuring everyone has replied in a timely manner before it is sent to Mr. Trivett, all while fielding emails and calls from applicants wanting to know the status of their request.
Which brings us to the new process. As you may see on the slide before you, the actual process remains unchanged. All of the steps are there, but now it will all be managed and executed within a single platform. Since 2020, the city has been using the grant and application management tool, SM Apply. We've administered hundreds of different applications through the system across a variety of programs, including grants from the EDA, Tourism Development Fund, Arts Commission, COVID relief, and outside agency funding requests. Basically, in SM Apply, we're able to create a step-by-step process with different stages, beginning with the application itself. The content within the application will not change from what it currently is, but we did want to highlight some new capabilities within SM Apply. All users, applicants, and reviewers will need to register an account, and while this may feel like an extra step, it makes the rest of the process much more intuitive, especially for tracking and reporting purposes. For example, when you have a registered account, you now have a dashboard when you log in, and you can see the status of your application. For each stage of the process, tasks are listed for the applicant, whether it's completing the application itself, uploading a certificate of insurance, paying a fee, or providing additional information. Applicants may also add collaborators to the application. Larger organizations applying for permits might find this useful, especially if somebody is responsible for a certain amount of documents, they can upload those. Drafts are automatically saved for users. And finally, we can add customized email automations, whether it's letting an applicant know whether their permit has entered a review stage or sending them a reminder if they owe a task. Because SM Apply's parent company is SurveyMonkey, the form itself is incredibly intuitive. I mentioned earlier that the application itself would not change, which is true, but now we can create rules, which basically means the applicant, if they mark yes, for example, when asked about road closures, the form will auto-populate a question asking for more details about those road closures. Earlier, Ms. Seward mentioned that there were particulars in the city code pertaining to when someone could apply for a special events permit. Now those questions will be asked at the beginning of the application to ensure they're applying at the correct time. This should ultimately save time for staff and applicants by being proactive versus reactive. And there are some other examples here of those intuitive questions. One of the biggest perks for using SM Apply relates to the review process. Instead of having to track email chains of communication, all reviews and comments will be housed in the platform. Everyone gets busy and emails get overlooked, but we'll now be able to set up friendly reminders and notifications through the system. We can even check to see when someone has logged into the system. The review format is very user-friendly. The bottom right image on the screen is a split screen. It shows the application on the left side and then the reviewer's form on the right. So a reviewer can scroll through the application on one side while making notes on the other side. Plus, all reviews will be available for all to see in one location. So if the city manager wants to double check that police, what they may have commented about a certain application, Mr. Trivett will be able to directly see that review from the police department. After all is said and done and an application is approved, the permit will be issued via email. This is not too different from what it currently is being done. However, much of the permit's content, like the event details, can be auto-generated into the email itself, saving staff time. The standard permit conditions will be included as an attachment. As it works now, the permit is not only sent to the applicant, but also to the appropriate staff and local partners, all of which can be done in SM Apply. And finally, on the applicant's dashboard, they will be able to see their updated status. And on the bottom right, you can see the status says approved. This slide just gives you a look into the different stages within the platform, from the application to the issuance of the permit. It looks like a lot, and it is, but most of it is automated to keep the process flowing. And stages 4 and 5 are only there if needed, if the applicant needs to provide additional information.
So what's next? We've already built out the entire program in SM Apply. In the coming weeks, we'll schedule review training sessions for staff and our local partners. We will also conduct a final test run for the entire process from application to final approval. A new processing fee will also be implemented for short-term special events permits. Having an application fee is extremely common. We researched our neighboring localities and we saw that we were one of the only ones, if not the only one, that did not require a fee. So the city attorney drafted an ordinance to amend the city code to include this fee, and it is included in today's agenda. Applicants will be able to pay this flat fee at the time of submitting their application. This is one functionality within SM Apply that we have yet to utilize for our other programs, so we're working with the finance department to set it up and test it. Once it's ready to go live, we'll ensure that the information is readily available to the public. And we are also looking at a live date of January 1st, 2026. So we've been working on this for a long time, and we are very excited to see it approaching the finish line. And at this time, we are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, Ms. Seward and Ms. Kurbala, thank you for the presentation, and thank you for what seems to be a natural step. I applaud what I get from this. It's much more user-friendly. It streamlines the process not only for city staff, but for the applicant. It gives them the ability to check the status and make adjustments all on one dashboard, I think is the word you used. So I think that's an outstanding process. This service or this platform comes at a cost?
Yes, we already have a license for it that includes something like 15 programs. We're at about 10, so this doesn't add an additional cost. It just comes with our license.
Okay, good. No, I think it's an outstanding approach to the whole process of event, permitting. So, because I know it gets a little tenuous at times when you're trying to field phone calls and answering questions, and all of that essentially is available to the applicant online. So that's great. Thank you. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, and most of all for bringing this forward. I know I work with a couple other organizations helping manage 5K races, and I know that other localities have a similar program to this, so, and also a fee, so this kind of brings us in line with them. And I'll admit I'm guilty of one of the ones emailing Sarah saying, what's the status of our application? So I look forward to seeing this for our next event. So that all that information's there and we don't have to bother you with it. So thank you for all the work on this.
Yes, thank you. I think this is really important, actually, because I do get a lot of questions about special event permits and what's the process and how do I check in and like what to do and who do I talk to. And so I think that this makes a lot of sense, and I think it's something that people will be used to doing. And I definitely can appreciate when you have a group of people who aren't in the same room, who all have to comment and sign off and keep it going, that this is actually just that's the most streamlined way to get this done. And so I can definitely see how this works, and I've been a part of these things on a functionality basis and work and everything. So this is very helpful. I think it makes really good sense and is an improvement on the system that we have now, absolutely, which I know falls a lot to your emails and phone calls. I think, though, the only thing I will say, and this is just more of a comment looking forward than a question, is just like how important, obviously, it will be for everyone to know that this is there. Because one thing I have heard a lot is just folks don't know where to start, or don't know where to find it on the website, or don't know what to do. And there may be times where it's like 5 days before they have planned their event. So I'm sure you all get that sometimes too. So I'm very encouraging of this, and really looking forward to seeing how it is given to the public in terms of like very easy. So if somebody calls me and says, Stacy, I don't even know where to begin, I could be like, this is where you begin, and that's how it goes. And I think that will be the cherry on top to what is a much more functional system than what we have now. Thank you.
Absolutely, and I'll add too that, in addition, or I know that Sarah mentioned that we'll make a public announcement about it, and we'll work with the communications director to make sure everybody knows, and every page is updated on the website, and within SM Apply itself, they have a really good FAQ section, so if there are technical questions that they're having an issue with, there is a direct place they can go to find those answers. So we'll make sure all of the information is there, and we're there as well, just in case.
Thank you. I think this is another great example of using technology and platforms that have already been developed to better a process and to make it a lot more efficient and effective. Obviously, with any new program, there's going to be questions, and so I imagine that you all would be available to walk someone through the process when this goes live. And I guess it was to Stacy's point about where this will be housed. So if someone asks us, do we direct them to the economic development, the EDA page? Is it on Yes Williamsburg? Will there be a little button at the bottom for it? So just to make sure it's very visible for people to access.
Absolutely, and right now it's on the city website, so all the information's on the city website, but to your point, because our department does manage the process, I think it's important to have it in both places, because it is a link out, so it's easy enough to add some copy there that, just, it's fine to duplicate those efforts because you want to make sure people see it. So I think on both the city site and the Yes Williamsburg site would make sense.
Yes, I think that'll be helpful because we have so much information on the website. Sometimes it's hard to find exactly what you're looking for. So I think this will be good. And just a couple questions because I haven't done special events applications before. If someone has a recurring event, like do they apply for the 2026, and then that process is they put all the dates down that they might be doing it, and that's good for the whole year, or do they have to do it each time they have an event?
So, for example, we have the farmers market, the Williamsburg Farmers Market, that is, every month. So how that process currently works is because in the code it says you cannot apply for your event 6 months, anything more than 6 months out. In the permit, they can only request those 6 months at a time, and then they'll put in a new application for the additional 6 months. And all special event permitting also is first come, first serve.
Okay, that's good to know. And is there a time for people to reply? I think of like the Turkey Trot, where you've got city streets, it goes into Colonial Williamsburg, it goes on William and Mary campus, so you have a number of different partners there. Do you all have a guideline or a time limit for everyone to get back to you?
Well, that's kind of why we're doing this, because again, it is very easy for things to get lost in emails. I'm guilty of it myself, completely, going through a bunch of permits at once. It's kind of like, oh gosh, what have I replied to? What have I not replied to? And just trying to keep up with everyone's tracking. There are some permits that can be issued and done within 2 days, and there are some that'll take up to 2 months. So that's why we are implementing this program in hopes that it will streamline everything, because to your point, there is no definitive timeline for responding.
And even with this new program, there won't be. Is that true?
Certainly put a deadline on it if need be, and I think when we mentioned earlier the automations, so if 4 out of the 5 reviewers that need to reply have replied, but one hasn't, we can, set up reminders. So, push them.
Yeah, because.
Friendly reminders, yeah.
Right, because you don't want to spend all of your time with the new system of going back to everyone and say, hey, have you seen this? We need you to reply and things like that.
And another feature of the program, which I'm really excited about, is all of the applications will be listed for the reviewers to see, so they will be able to see what they have responded to and what they have not.
Good. Well, sounds like a very good program, and even with all of the technology, there will still include and involve time and effort from staff, so I'm fully in support of the feed, which will be coming shortly. Thank you.
Yes, well, thank you both for just all the work that you've placed in and just creating this new platform that makes the process a lot more efficient than what it is now. I did have one question in regards to, I know each event or every event is different, and like you just mentioned, some events may take 2 days to permit and others longer, but I wanted to see with this new platform, is there any way for the applicant to track the progress just while they're waiting, if it's 2 months or 2 days?
Yes, so there is a feature in the platform which will currently tell them where their application is as far as the review process.
That sounds great. I think that will be very helpful as well.
And I will say,
Thank you.
with them being able to tell what stage they're in, that's another, we can also set up automations to let them know if we want, it is approved through this, but we can communicate with them as often or as little as we need to. So we'll make sure that they know.
And it sounds like you can customize it too.
Absolutely.
That's one of the things I wanted to point out and say thank you to the team, Sarah, Joanna, and Dusty particularly, because one of the great things, and the mayor touched on this is a platform we already own, but it requires a great deal of customization. It basically has to be the form and the process, all of those automations have to be designed and created, and that's been done by this team, and I just want to say thank you for the time you've put in.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, takes us now to city manager's report. Anything?
None this month.
Nothing at this time.
Read them backwards, but glad you both have nothing. Leads us now to open forum. I do have a couple speakers cards, and first I'll call up Miss Susan Burrow.
Burke.
Burke, is that a K or C?
G.
G?
Burke.
It's like an O. Sorry about that. Welcome. If you just state your name and address for the record, please.
Welcome, Mayor Pons and Vice Mayor Dent and Stacy, who lives on my street, Barb, who lives just
Around the
off my
corner.
street. Good to see you.
I live across the town.
I know, and I've spoken to you back in 2013, so I know you listen to citizens' concerns.
Do.
So thank you. I appreciate having this privilege to speak in front of you. I'm glad you can't see that my knees are knocking, because I'm not in my comfort zone at the moment. Anyway, I'm here to speak about the parking system. I was away over the summer and came back and found out that what was in the past is no longer in the future. And I guess I started to think about the implications of this. And normally you think that replacing an existing system presupposes that the new system will be an improvement. City council are leaders and make wonderful decisions, but I really would ask that you reconsider and look at this new system again. Specifically, in this case, there's lots of issues, some of them are technical, regarding privacy, and even more specifically regarding the visitor permits. I think you all are aware of the requirements now that we have to go through when we have people visiting us, but it is an invasion of privacy. It truly is, and to disregard that really doesn't sit well with me. You may be looking at one person, but I represent a lot of people in Williamsburg who feel the same way I do, based on conversations I've had, and not everybody could be here today. It wasn't even on the agenda, but when you hear me speak, you should realize that there are other people as well. I took the time of looking at the privacy policy online, and if they gave out degrees for obfuscation, this person would have a doctorate. I've looked at a lot of privacy policies, and this one goes on and on and on and on. And then I saw carve-outs. There is a carve-out for California, Connecticut, Colorado. That tells you that maybe there's a problem with a third-party privacy policy. And I also started to think, and I shouldn't do all this thinking, but what would all of us, including city council, think if every city in the U.S. government required that people parking on city streets had to have that information captured and sent to a third party for God knows how long, and when would it be deleted? Would we all support that in countries all over the United States? And if we wouldn't, why would we support it in Williamsburg? I'm musing. I know that or I think that perhaps this was implemented rather quickly without a lot of review. I'd be glad to work with members of the city government and city council to go over it again, and I really hope that city council can rectify this situation. I don't think I have anything else in my notes. I don't recall, but I appreciate your time, and I hope my message has been heard. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Next speaker's card I have is Ms. Marlene Davis.
After that wonderful presentation from the young ladies, I wonder if I could use their speaker because we're having a great deal of difficulty hearing everybody.
Mark, can you maybe pull that forward, if that's helpful?
It was hard to hear Susan's. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Better?
Definitely.
Okay. I'm Marlene Davis, and I live at 302 Indian Springs Road, and have lived on Griffin and Pollard Park over a period of 50-plus years. And right now, I'm in a complicated situation because of parking. I have home help come, and they come in unmarked cars, and I've previously been able to manipulate things, schedules, by using the little passes. But now, in order to report every single person who comes, and some are for personal care, some are for medical, some are just friends or old neighbors who pop in, but the present plan is just too complicated for some of us. I'm surviving at 90 plus, but need all the help I can get, and love my community and want to enjoy it. I go on daily walks, and on my walk, one of the problems is often parking. People have parked, more students in absentee landlord houses who have more than enough cars. Bikes seem sort of out of fashion these days. And I'm appealing to the city and your understanding that maybe someday you'll be ancient too, to think about a simpler system, but calling every time someone comes, giving out personal information about them is awkward. And so that is what I'm hoping you'll rethink. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. I hope to be ancient. Next speaker's card I have is Ms. Frederica Toite. All right. I panicked over this, you know.
Well, I'm here on the same topic. I was here on Monday. I did not recruit these people. They've come to me because of the letter that I put in the Gazette. And so I just am here to re-emphasize to all of you that the city should attend to this community concern and take it really seriously on the matter of digital visitor permits, from the confidentiality to the practicality to the surveillance. In essence, when I got home on Monday, what I thought about is that in essence, digital registration is turning our neighborhoods into the likes of gated communities, something that a lot of us wanted to avoid by living in the city in a much more open way, where visitors are not allowed without first being registered, but here it is being registered to the police. And I really, please think about this seriously. So my suggestions for enhancing, improving relations with the community have sometimes been shunted aside by the city. And I'm hoping this time that you recognize this is actually a political issue as well as a community issue. So thank you.
Thank you. So I have no more speakers card, but the open forum is still available if anybody would like to come forward. Seeing none, I'll close the open forum and we'll move on to unfinished business, which there is none. New business. Seeing none, we'll go on to, new business for item A. Consideration and action regarding the authorization of the execution of a purchase order for the UPC 115418 Richmond Road traffic signals modification and pedestrian improvements to UPC 115503 Lafayette Street traffic signals and so forth. Mr. Reed, welcome.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of council. We are here requesting permission to proceed with design services for 2 signal optimization projects. Both projects will involve reviewing the traffic signal, timing, data collection, field observations, and developing a synchro-based model of the traffic signals to evaluate cycle links along the Richmond Road and Lafayette Street corridors. Final report will be provided, and that will include modifications to the signals as well as pedestrian improvements. The review will encompass essentially all traffic signals on the Richmond Road and Lafayette corridors. The cost of the task order for Richmond Road corridor will not exceed $111,173, and the Lafayette Street will not exceed $47,608. A smart scale grant will cover all costs, so no city funds will be used for this project. Ultimately, this project aims to provide improved timing of all signals in these corridors, enabling traffic to flow more efficiently throughout the city. We ask the council authorize the city manager to execute purchase orders to VHB for design services based on task order proposals. That's for Richmond Road and Lafayette Street. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Obviously, this is something we've talked about over a period of time now.
Yes, sir.
We had to give VDOT kind of the authorization to proceed to provide this proposal for us. And so I think the work that will be done in synchronizing these lights is an enhancement for our community. And the benefit is it's going to be using money that doesn't come from our budget.
Yes, sir.
I don't have any questions.
Yeah, no questions. Just thank you for doing the work on this. And as the mayor said, we've discussed this before, and obviously if the smart scale money paying for it is great as well. But hopefully that's going to help. I know just right here along Lafayette Street in front of the fire station and police station's always been a backup in the afternoons.
Yes, sir.
So hopefully they'll be able to make some adjustments that'll improve that traffic flow.
Sir.
Thank you.
Yes, hi, thank you. So I don't think I have a question. I know sometimes folks don't always follow along. You know, we know that we've considered this project multiple times, so just to kind of get everybody on the same page, like in the past, when this has come before council, it was really about getting the funding structure set up with the smart scale in the state, right? So this isn't the first time we've seen this, and the times we have considered it, I've been very excited about this, because just being able to drive down Richmond Road very continuously without stopping at every stoplight is the dream, right? So I'm glad to see that it's gotten to this next step. And so after this step, what will we see it a fourth time? Like, is my question. Is it going to come back again after today?
No, not after
Okay.
today. Today was because it exceeds $100,000. We need council approval.
Okay, so this may be, the next time I think about light synchronization on Richmond Road, it's going to be because I'm driving down Richmond Road and it will all be working great.
Working better. Yes,
Great,
ma'am.
thank you so much.
Thank you, and I just have a follow-up question to Stacy's. Once this is approved, when will the process start, and how long is it anticipated to take for all of the lights and the synchronization to occur?
Process will start immediately. We'll move forward right away. I want to say 6 months to a year to get all the way through. The data analysis and all that will take some time, and then once they figure out how to program the lights, the work itself will not take much time.
All right, thank you.
I don't have any further questions, but just wanted to thank you for all the work that you've placed in. I know it has been a process, so it's very exciting to get to this final step. Especially, I know both of these roads, during rush hour, there is a bit of traffic that builds up, so I think this will be a very nice addition. So thank you.
Somebody like to make a motion?
About what help. So I move that council authorize the city manager to execute purchase orders to Vaness Hangen Bruston Incorporated, VHB, for design services based on the task orders proposals not to exceed $111,173 for the UPC 115418 Richmond Road traffic signals modification and pedestrian improvements, and not to exceed $47,608 for the UPC 115503 Lafayette Street traffic signals modifications and pedestrians improvements. You put it all in there, Jeff.
Put it off.
Second.
All right, thank you, Ms. McKay.
Ms. Williams.
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey.
Aye.
Mayor Pons.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher.
Aye.
Okay, item B is consideration and action regarding authorization for the city manager to execute a contract for EMS billing. Chief Snyder, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pons, Vice Mayor Denton, City Council members. This is just a procedural thing for our contract. So we've used EMSMC since about 2015, and our current contract, the contract that we had expired. And so in order to renew it, we had to find other localities that were using the same firm that we've been using since 2015. And so we were able to find Henry County, whose contract with them had cooperative language. There's really no difference other than the rate that they're going to collect. We have historically been at 4.5%. This contract is going to allow it to be at 4.85%, so that'll be the one difference. And again, we've had a great working relationship with EMSMC. They know our processes, we know their processes, so that's why we wanted to stay with them. And because it's generally about $40,000 a year that the city pays for them to do our third-party billing, this is going to be a 5-year contract, which obviously needs to go to City Council for your approval because it's over the $100,000 over the term of the contract. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have in regards to this.
Thank you, Chief. I don't have any question, but maybe the Vice Mayor does.
No, as Chief stated, this contract's been in place since 2015, and I know they've always done an outstanding job for the city, so just time to renew.
None for me.
No questions. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So I move that City Council authorize the city manager to execute a contract with EMS Management and Consultants, Inc. for EMS billing services.
Second.
Okay.
Ms. Williams.
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey.
Aye.
Mayor Pons.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher.
Aye.
Okay, so we'll need, now that we've done that, we have to move on to C, which is consideration and action regarding ordinance 25-13, authorizing the city manager to expand EMS fees. Chief Snyder.
Yes, sir. It's a perfect sequence of events. So ordinance 2513 originally was adopted, the imposition of EMS fees was originally adopted by City Council in 2005, and we have not looked and reevaluated that since then. And one of the things, the catalyst for why we're coming to you today for that is that in 2024, all of Virginia was notified that we had to transition from our hospital-based medication boxes that we provide medications to patients. We had to move them from the hospitals, and each locality had to take care of their own. And so that was a FY25 CIP project that council approved for us to be able to build the infrastructure for us to have our own internal medication box program, since we no longer could use the hospital-based. And the city paid about $48,000 for us to get that up and running so that we could adhere to that requirement that the DEA mandated on the Commonwealth of Virginia and all the localities who provide those services. Having said that, obviously we are incurring different money and new money in terms of having to be able to restock those medication boxes and the other things that go along with having to administer those drugs. And so we felt it was prudent for us, in talking to some of our colleagues in Hampton Roads, to look at what we are charging and determine if it made sense for us to look at some opportunity to start offsetting the costs that the city is incurring to provide not just the medication box program, but some of the other things that we're doing as well. And so ordinance 2513 really broadens the scope to provide the city manager to authorize additional fees that are outside the original ones that were done in 2005. 2005 was strictly based on Medicare. We used the Medicare best billing practices, and right now, as you guys are aware, every year we bill at a 150% of the Medicare rate for our EMS services, which is in alignment with all of our local jurisdictions. In order to add some additional fees, such as being able to provide a fee for somebody who we treat but maybe does not go to the hospital, so they're not transported, and then also to capture some of the costs incurred for the medication box program, IV supplies, and other things that we're doing, we're asking City Council's approval to allow the city manager to authorize fees to help recoup and offset the costs of those services. And that's really what it says. So when you're looking actually at the proposed 2513, which obviously all credit goes to Ms. Shelton, because I certainly did not write this. It talks about interfacility transport, medical box system, non-transport, and then item E on page 3, which is those are the 4 additions to the ordinance that we're asking you guys to approve today. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. So, obviously, fees are paid by somebody.
Right.
But when we look at these fees, I think for me, the first thing is, it's really just offset the expense. We're not operating the fire department as a profit center.
That is correct.
We're not running EMT as a profit center. And so what we're looking to do is to take advantage of billing insurances to cover the new costs and higher costs that we've incurred.
That is correct.
Right, and we're not talking big dollars, we're talking modest dollars. General, I mean, obviously there's different rates for different things. But
Sure. Yeah, I think, and the thing that is important to note is when we bill a patient for these increased fees or the scope of fees, if you guys approve and Mr. Tribbitt is good with it, we're going to bill their insurance. And if their insurance doesn't pay for that, then we're just not going to get that fee. So the calculations based upon the projections on the fees that we would like to implement is probably going to be about a 60% collection rate, because about 40% of the folks who we interface with, they don't have a billing insurance. Who's going to pay for those? And that's okay. They don't pay for it, we move on like we always have.
Good. Well, I'm glad you made that point. That's kind of where I was leading.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not looking to gouge folks.
Yep.
So, good. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. And just to follow up on that, that's for city residents, correct? Do you pursue billing, because we run mutual aid calls to other localities?
So it's a good question. So York County and James City, we all practice the same billing practices. So we obviously will waive the copay, and then we bill someone's insurance, and whatever the insurance does not pay, they do not get a second bill. It's waived off. So it's written off whatever their insurance doesn't pay. We don't give them a second bill for whatever was not covered. And that's consistent with all 3 jurisdictions, whether it's a City of Williamsburg resident, a James City resident, or a York County resident, to ensure that we're being fair with our billing practices for our residents in our greater community.
I think it was an important point the mayor made with even with all these increased fees, there's no profit in this, in the business of EMS. And even, as you mentioned in your presentation, fortunately, the city of Williamsburg was in a position to transition to their own medication drug box program, but a lot of localities in this region in Virginia were not prepared for that, and because the rural localities were not in a position to do that. And that was one of those unfunded mandates that really created a big burden on some other localities. Again, fortunately, we were in a position to take that on and manage it and the expense most of all. And sitting on the board for Peninsula EMS Council, if it had not been for their leadership for some of the smaller localities, they would probably be out of business, which have been extremely devastating for Virginia.
Yes, sir. We were actually lucky. So Sierra Finsky, our battalion chief of EMS, she did all the heavy lifting on this, and all credit goes to her to getting us ready and in transition us. And to my knowledge, we were the first fire and EMS agency in Hampton Roads. We transitioned on February 13th of 2025 to go to our own internal medication system. One, we're smaller, so it's easier, a little bit easier for us, but a lot of that is really a credit to her and her efforts to do that. So again, due to City Council's support, we were able to do that, and it's actually been working extremely well. Where there's a lot of concern and apprehension with this, because it is very different for us, but it's been a great transition. Been really proud of our folks to be able to implement it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, this is interesting. So before 2024, the medication boxes system, it was all run out of hospitals.
That's correct, yes,
And so the general, just to make sure I'm clear, the general simply made the change to say no longer at hospitals and now localities have to have it in-house.
No, it was the DEA, so it
The
came from,
DEA,
it was the federal. So
Oh, okay.
Virginia was the last two states that ran a hospital-based medication box system.
Okay.
And so evidently, there was some type of information and requirement years ago about us having to do this, and finally they decided they were going to enforce it. And so that's why this was federally mandated and just kind of passed through to the localities.
I see, okay. And then the one question I had on the draft itself is that, and this is just, I'm just curious about the exceptions.
Yep.
To, you know, like I'm sure there's a reason about the persons in the custody of police department or people in the custody of the sheriff or VPRJ. Is there some mechanism other mechanism at play there as to the reason why they would be accepted?
So two thoughts on that. One, I asked this question to Ms. Shelton because this is her wheelhouse. One, we just followed, when we did this in 2005, when council approved it, we just followed Medicare's best practices in terms of billing. And so when the council voted for this, these were the best practices from Medicare in terms of localities billing. Also, if you do a deeper dive into it, obviously if we have somebody in custody of the sheriff or somebody in custody of our police department or VPRJ, the city is going to end up paying for that because they're in our custody. So we're not going to bill ourselves for those types of things. So some of them are just nuances on who actually is going to get the bill.
Right.
But really, it's about following the best practices of Medicare at the time, which to our knowledge really has not changed.
Great, thank you. And
Yep.
I figured there was like a couple different rationales happening in the exceptions, you know, rather, you know, kind of discretion of, you know, according to policies, a discretion of city manager in certain situations of financial hardship perhaps, but then also those who are already in our custody in some way or another.
Yep.
So thank you for clarifying.
And we do the hardship thing. We probably get maybe 10 a year when we get our requests for hardship, and we follow very specific guidelines to make sure that how we're measuring those and how we make those decisions are obviously equal and fair.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, and thanks to Ms. Shelton for the ordinance. And so as I understand it, we've been imposing fees for the past 20 years.
Yes, ma'am.
So the program itself is not changing. It's just the cost of some of the medications and transportation. And I think we can all attest to the fact that prices have risen over the past 20 years. And this is something we probably should have considered 10 years ago.
Sure.
So to me, this is just sort of bringing us up to sort of what the standard is for the cost of services provided.
Yes, ma'am. And I
Thank
would
you.
also add, I think it's important for you all to know that James City and York County are also planning to broaden the same scope of fees as we are. So they're letting us go first, see how it all goes, and then I expect them to follow suit most likely by the end of the year, so that all three jurisdictions, again, are trying to be as consistent as possible.
Thank you.
Williams?
Well, thank you for the information. I had one clarifying question I wanted to ask, based off of Vice Mayor Dent's comment earlier. With the billing going straight to the insurance, residents who don't have insurance, they will not incur any fees, is that correct?
That is correct. So they'll get a bill, but they won't have to pay. So generally, we do a soft billing, and what that means is after you're unable to pay or you can't pay, it gets written off. Yeah. We would never send, we wouldn't send anybody to collections. There's no mechanism for that. Again, to the mayor and vice mayor's point, and to everyone's point, we're not here to run a profit. If we can get some revenue recovery, great. If not, we're still going to obviously provide outstanding service.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep, absolutely.
So I move that City Council approve proposed ordinance 25-13.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Okay, item D is consideration and action regarding resolution number 25-117 for the approval of the city's participation in the proposed direct settlement of the opioid-related claims against 8 drug manufacturers and directing the city attorney to execute the documents necessary to effectuate the city's participation in the settlement. Ms. Shelton.
So last month, City Council approved this resolution as to Purdue Pharma and the Sackler family. This is a new set of opioid manufacturers. I quite frankly have never heard of any of them, but they have negotiated a settlement with a total value of $720 million. Virginia is participating in that settlement. As I said last month, the city's share of this is going to be very small. The value of this is that if the city participates and the other jurisdictions in the state participate, the state's share is maximized. And those funds are used to fund grant programs in every jurisdiction in the state to deal with the opioid crisis and substance abuse programs in the state. But it does require City Council to approve the resolution. So a new resolution is in front of you for this new settlement at your pleasure.
Yeah, so I think we've done this several times before to participate in whatever settlements may come of this. I think we've collected some money, haven't we?
I would have to ask Barbara if she has a better idea. I know that we are somewhere in the $20,000 to $30,000 range for.
I mean, I don't need one. I'm just trying to make the point that we have done this in the past, and we have collected some money. I recall seeing some budget amendments along the way. So, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
No questions.
No questions?
Questions?
Okay.
So I move that City Council approve Resolution 25-17.
Second.
Okay.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire?
Aye.
Hey, item E is consideration and action regarding the proposed ordinance 25-14 to amend Chapter 9, Article 2 of Section 9.9-41 to add a permit fee for the cost of reviewing and processing special event permits. Ms. Shelton.
So staff asked me to prepare an ordinance to add a fee for the cost of processing short-term special event permits. Last year, the city received 93 special event permit applications, so more than one for every week of the year. So far, we've received 70 for this year. These are pretty onerous in terms of the number of people who have to look at them and the time that it takes to process them. And I'm optimistic that time will get cut down with the new processes in place, but the reality is there's still a lot of staff who are looking at each one of these applications. The long-term special events fee is $100. This would impose a $50 fee on short-term special events. It allows the city manager to increase that fee for an increase in the processing costs over time.
Thank you. You know, that doesn't seem onerous to me for some of the size and scales of the events that we do. So I think this is in keeping, and I believe it matches what other jurisdictions are doing. I believe that's what we heard earlier, so I'm okay with this.
Yeah, I agree. It's pointed out in the presentation, one of the few localities that are not currently charging for special events.
I agree. I think, as mentioned earlier, it's all about making sure that people are aware of the change and how to, execute, the changes that are coming up. So I think that this makes sense. It's not onerous, and really it's about, communicating with the public about it.
I would agree, and no matter how much automation is put into a new process, you're still going to have city staff spending a lot of their time and effort making through that the permits go through. So I think this is very reasonable.
Yes, I also agree as well.
So I move that City Council adopt proposed ordinance 25-14.
Second.
Okay?
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire?
Aye.
Okay, item F is consideration and appointment to boards and commission. Do you have any, Mr. Vice Mayor?
We do.
All right.
I move the City Council appoint Randy Casey Rutland to the Economic Development Authority for a 4-year term ending June 30, 2029. Appoint Brian Twitty to an unexpired term on the Economic Development Authority for a term ending June 30, 2028. And appoint Bonnie Smith to an unexpired term on the Williamsburg Farmers Market Advisory Board for a term ending June 30, 2026.
Second.
Okay?
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire?
Aye.
Okay. I don't think we have any closed session.
No closed session.
All right. Somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
So I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay?
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire?
Aye.
Thank you all.